We live in a world that glorifies the external, status, appearance, possessions, recognition, and in chasing all of that, many forget the one place real transformation happens, inside. That quiet, often neglected space within you where the real battles are fought. The truth is, no amount of money, applause, followers, or praise can compensate for an undisciplined, unhealed, and unfocused mind. You can have the nicest clothes, the best smile, the fanciest car, but if your thoughts are in chaos, if your heart is heavy, if your spirit is lost, none of it will bring you peace. When you focus on yourself, truly and deeply, you stop trying to fix everything out there, and you start cleaning house within. That's where the power is. That's where things begin to move. See, people want the rewards of growth without the responsibility of doing the work. They want peace without practicing patience. They want confidence without confronting their fear, but you can't skip the inner process and expect the outer results. It starts when you stop pointing fingers. It starts when you stop blaming your past, your parents, your pain. Not because none of that matters, it does. But the moment you realize that you are the one in control of how it affects you, is the moment you take your power back. Because your healing, your growth, your transformation, that's your job, and it doesn't happen in public. It happens in the quiet, when no one's watching, when no one's clapping, when it's just you and your choices. And it takes courage, courage to sit with your own thoughts long enough to hear the lies you've believed for too long. Courage to admit that you're not always right. Courage to say, I need to change this about me, without shame. See, the strongest people are not the loudest ones. The strongest people are the ones who have looked their flaws in the eye and chose to fight not others, but themselves. People think self-work is just about being positive, but real inner work is gritty, it's uncomfortable. It's showing up on the days you don't feel like it. It's choosing to forgive someone who will never apologize. It's letting go of a version of yourself that felt safe but wasn't serving you. That's not easy, but that's where freedom lives. And as you begin to do this work, something starts to shift. You begin to stop reacting and start responding. You stop competing and start evolving. You stop comparing and start creating. You stop chasing people and start attracting purpose. Because when your inside world becomes stable, the outside world loses its grip on you. Your value isn't determined by who notices you. Your strength isn't measured by who agrees with you. You start showing up for yourself, not for validation, but because you believe in your own worth. That's what the power of internal work gives you, clarity. You begin to hear your own voice above the noise. You begin to choose what aligns, not what pleases. You begin to live with intention, not impulse. Most people walk around distracted, chasing things that look good but don't feel right. Why? Because they haven't slowed down long enough to ask themselves, what do I really need? Not what others expect, not what society screams, but what does my soul actually need? That's a question only inner work can answer. You begin to realize that some of the problems you blamed the world for were really just reflections of your own unhealed wounds. You start seeing that some of your relationships were built on codependency, not connection. You start noticing how many of your habits were not about discipline, but distraction. This awareness hurts, but it heals, and here's the thing, no one can do it for you. You can read all the books. Watch all the videos, listen to all the speeches, but at the end of the day, you have to apply it. You have to practice it. You have to be the one to say enough. I'm not living this way anymore. That's the beginning of inner power. You stop settling for temporary highs and start building long-term peace. You stop needing everyone to like you and start learning to like yourself. And you do it daily, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard, because that's when it counts. That's when character is built. That's when strength is forged, not in moments of comfort, but in moments of decision. And every time you choose discipline over distraction, honesty over ego, healing over hiding, you win. Not out there, but in here, where it truly matters, where real change begins. Distractions are the silent killers of destiny. They don't come with alarms or flashing red lights. They creep in quietly, one notification here, one scroll there. One pointless conversation, one emotional reaction to something that doesn't deserve your energy. Before you know it, you've drifted far from the person you are becoming. You wake up and realize you're busy but not productive, present but not purposeful, surrounded but not fulfilled. That's what distractions do. They don't just waste your time, they rob you of clarity, of focus, of growth. They make you forget what you were actually aiming for in the first place. We live in an age that's addicted to noise. And the most dangerous thing is that we normalize it. Constant stimulation has become comfort. We don't know how to be still. We don't know how to be bored. We don't know how to be alone with our thoughts without trying to escape them. That's why people jump from app to app, person to person, habit to habit, not because they're thriving, but because they're running. Running from silence, running from themselves, running from the very truth that could set them free if they'd just pause and listen. When you begin to focus on yourself, one of the first things you realize is how much of your energy has been leaking out. You start to see how much time you've spent reacting to things that have nothing to do with your purpose. You notice how often you've been emotionally hijacked by other people's opinions, by gossip, by fear, by comparison. That's the danger of distraction. It doesn't look like destruction, but it leads there. It starts small. Just a little time here, a little focus there, but it adds up. And before long, you're exhausted, not because you're doing too much, but because you're doing too much of the wrong things. The truth is, some people aren't burned out because they're overworked. They're burned out because they're misaligned. They're pouring themselves into things that are draining them, not developing them. They're busy with things that feel urgent but aren't actually important. That's why detachment is power. Detachment is not apathy. It's not indifference. It's not becoming cold. It's becoming clear. It's saying, this doesn't deserve my attention right now. It's choosing peace over performance, depth over noise, vision over validation. There's a strength in not responding to every attack. There's a wisdom in not attending every argument you're invited to. There's a freedom in not explaining your every move, because not everything requires your energy. Not everyone deserves your response. The deeper you go into your purpose, the quieter your spirit becomes. You realize that clarity comes from subtraction, not addition. Less noise, more focus. Less approval, more alignment. Less reaction, more intention. It takes maturity to be intentional about what you give your energy to. You learn to guard your time like it's gold, because it is. You learn to be unavailable to drama, to distractions, to dysfunction. You learn to shut doors that lead nowhere. You learn that silence is a weapon, that stillness is strategy. That not responding doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're wise. You're choosing to preserve your power instead of wasting it on things that don't grow you. Some people will misunderstand this. They'll think you're cold, arrogant, distant, but what they don't understand is that you're not being distant, you're being deliberate. You're not being rude, you're being responsible with your peace. You're not cutting them off, you're cutting yourself free. And that difference is everything. Distractions will always be there, but your discipline decides whether they control you or not. It's easy to stay caught in loops, to keep checking things, to keep reacting to what's urgent instead of what's essential. But when you detach from the noise, you start to hear your own voice again. You remember what you're building, who you're becoming, where you're going, and suddenly the things that used to distract you no longer interest you. You start living different, thinking different, choosing different. You stop needing to be everywhere, do everything, please everyone. You give yourself permission to disconnect from the world and reconnect with yourself, and in that space, your power returns. Your clarity sharpens, your growth accelerates, because your energy is no longer scattered, it's centered. Focused, directed towards something that actually matters. And here's what's beautiful: once you learn to detach from distractions, you gain the ability to create your own rhythm. You stop dancing to the noise of the world and start moving to the beat of your own spirit. You realize that peace isn't found in doing more, but in doing less better. And every time you choose focus over frenzy, intention over impulse, vision over noise, you elevate. Quietly, powerfully, steadily. Elevation doesn't happen in the spotlight. It's born in the shadows, in the quiet, unseen moments when no one is clapping for you, when no one's checking in, when you have to be your own motivation. That's where consistency lives, and consistency, that's the bridge between where you are and where you're trying to go. Most people want the reward, but not the routine. They want the results, but not the repetition. But the truth is, greatness isn't built in bursts. It's built in discipline. It's built in the decision to show up again and again, especially when it's hard, especially when you're tired, especially when you don't feel like it. There is no secret sauce, no overnight miracle. It's about showing up for yourself with the same energy on the days you feel unstoppable and the days you feel invisible. Because when you stay consistent, something begins to shift. Your mindset changes, your habits sharpen. Your identity begins to align with your goals. You stop chasing motivation and start building momentum. And momentum, that's when the real elevation begins. See, when you're consistent, you start to build trust, not with the world, but with yourself. And that trust is everything. It means you no longer doubt your ability to follow through. It means you no longer rely on hype to get going. It means you become the kind of person who does what they say they'll do, whether the mood is there or not. That level of integrity creates confidence, and confidence creates movement. It doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be flashy, but it's real, and real progress is better than fake perfection every single time. People will ask how you changed, how you elevated, how you grew so much, and they won't see the early mornings, the late nights, the lonely hours of work when you wanted to quit but didn't. They won't see the times you showed up for practice, for prayer, for planning, for purpose, even when no one was watching. But you'll know it was built in the grind, in the sweat, in the silence, in the repetition. In the refusal to give up when it would have been easier to walk away. The difference between people who rise and people who remain is not always talent. It's not always intelligence, it's not even luck, it's consistency. It's the quiet discipline of doing the right thing when it's not convenient. It's setting the standard and holding the line, not because anyone's making you, but because you made a commitment to yourself and you're not about to break it. That kind of self-respect builds power, that kind of follow-through builds legacy. Consistency forces you to grow because it makes you face the parts of yourself that want to take shortcuts. It humbles you, it teaches you patience, it teaches you resilience. You start to realize that real success isn't built in one big moment. It's 1,000 small decisions done with excellence. It's saying yes to progress and no to excuses. It's choosing to keep your word even when it's inconvenient. That's how you rise. Every single day you are building something, whether you mean to or not. Every action, every habit, every choice is laying a brick. The question is, what are you building? Are you building strength or are you building stagnation? Are you reinforcing growth or reinforcing your limits? Because consistency doesn't care about how you feel, it reflects what you prioritize. You can't keep saying you want to change while living like nothing needs to. The ones who elevate are the ones who understand that the process is sacred. They embrace the routine. They don't wait for lightning to strike. They don't wait for someone to push them. They've learned how to push themselves. They find purpose in the practice, meaning in the mundane, growth in the grind, and because of that they grow. Slowly at first, then all at once, and when the moment comes, when the spotlight finally lands on them, they're ready. Not because they were lucky, but because they were prepared. Consistency prepared them. Repetition sharpened them. Discipline molded them. So many people give up because they don't see instant results. But just because you don't see it today doesn't mean it's not working. Just because no one's applauding doesn't mean it's not meaningful. Elevation is happening the moment you decide to keep showing up. Even when it's boring, even when it's hard, even when it feels like nothing's changing, that's when everything is changing. Beneath the surface, inside the mindset, inside the character, that's where elevation begins, because the truth is, most breakthroughs don't happen in one dramatic moment. They happen in the 5 a.m. alarm you didn't snooze, in the workout you didn't skip, in the honest conversation you didn't avoid, in the discipline you kept when no one was watching, in the promise you kept to yourself. That's consistency. And that's how you rise, not by waiting, but by working, quietly, steadily, relentlessly. Becoming who you're meant to be isn't a decision you make once. It's a series of decisions you make every single day. It's not a destination you stumble upon. It's a journey you fight through inch by inch, layer by layer, truth by truth. And the hardest part, you don't always recognize the person you're becoming while you're becoming them. Because growth is uncomfortable, change is disruptive, and elevation often feels like isolation before it feels like arrival. The world will try to tell you who you are. It'll try to define you by your past, by your failures, by your pain, by your circumstances. But who you're meant to be is never tied to where you've been. It's tied to what you're willing to rise into. And that rising starts when you get tired of shrinking, tired of playing small, tired of living on repeat. You can't step into the next level while holding on to the identity that kept you comfortable at the last one. Becoming requires shedding, and shedding requires courage. There are moments in life where you realize that the version of yourself you've been carrying is too heavy for the place you're going. The habits, the thoughts, the beliefs, they don't fit the vision anymore. And when that realization hits, you have two choices. Stay where it's safe, or step into the fire of transformation. That fire doesn't destroy you, it refines you. It burns away what isn't real so what's true can rise. You start asking harder questions. You start confronting deeper truths. You start letting go of who you thought you had to be, just to meet who you really are. The process is rarely smooth. Sometimes it feels like you're falling apart, but in reality you're being rebuilt. Piece by piece, and not everyone will understand it. People will miss the old version of you, the one that played along, stayed quiet, fit their expectations. But you weren't born to be anyone's version of comfortable. You were born to be free, and freedom costs. It costs familiarity, it costs approval, it costs certainty, but what you gain in return is priceless: alignment, clarity, authenticity, purpose. Becoming who you're meant to be doesn't mean becoming perfect. It means becoming honest, honest about your pain. Honest about your patterns, honest about your potential. It means owning your story, not just the highlights, but the broken chapters too. Because the power isn't in pretending you've had it all together. The power is in knowing that everything you've been through was shaping you, strengthening you, preparing you for the exact place you're meant to rise into. It's easy to perform for the world, to wear the mask, to play the role, but none of that satisfies the soul. At some point, you get tired of pretending. You get tired of chasing things that leave you feeling empty. And that's when the shift begins. You stop asking, what do they want from me? And you start asking, what do I want for myself? And not in a selfish way, but in a soul-honoring way. You begin to make decisions that reflect your values, not your fears. You begin to protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. You begin to realize that alignment is louder than applause. The more you grow, the less you need to prove. You no longer seek permission to be powerful. You no longer need validation to move forward. You realize that you were never too much. You were just trying to fit into spaces that were too small. So you stop shrinking, you stop explaining, you stop apologizing for dreaming bigger, speaking louder, walking bolder. You own it, and when you do, something shifts in the atmosphere around you. People begin to feel it, that presence, that fire, that depth. Because there's nothing more magnetic than someone who has met themselves and decided to walk in their truth without fear. The path isn't easy. It will test you. It will stretch you. It will ask you to let go of things that once felt necessary, old identities, expired relationships, limiting beliefs. But everything you release creates room for what's meant to stay, and every time you choose alignment over acceptance, courage over comfort, purpose over pressure, you rise. You become steady, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. You become clear, not because the path is perfect, but because you've learned to trust yourself. And that trust, that's where your power lives, that's where your purpose breathes. Because becoming who you're meant to be is not about changing into someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been, beneath the doubt, beneath the fear, beneath the noise. And once you meet that version of you, that true, grounded, powerful version, you don't go back. You can't go back. Because you've seen what's possible, you've tasted what alignment feels like, and from that point forward, every step you take is different. Every word, every move, every decision comes from a place that's rooted, real, unshakable, and that's when you know you've started becoming who you were always meant to be. So now you know it was never about changing the world before changing yourself. It was never about proving anything to anyone else. It was always about coming home to you, to the version of you that's focused, intentional, disciplined, and unshaken by noise. Because when you focus on yourself, everything changes, your mindset sharpens, your peace deepens, your power grows. You stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself. You stop surviving in confusion and start living with clarity. And that shift, that decision to stop looking outward and start reaching inward, that's what sets everything in motion. Because the real glow up, the real breakthrough, the real success story, it doesn't start with applause. It starts with alignment, so lock in, work in silence, heal, build, trust the process, and never forget the moment you decide to focus on you, everything changes.